Alright peoples, what's up? It's your boy the Brown Llama, or Dathan if we're close friends, from the Wink and Gentleman Society, and I'd like to welcome you to video 3 of our Microsoft Word course. We left off with playing with the find and replace, so I'm just going to show you a couple more things there just to give you a quick refresher. Let's start with a blank document, and if you remember my cool little trick, equal sign, lorem, open close parentheses, press enter and get some dummy text in there if you're following along here. Now, to use the find and replace, just like I told you, it does work on websites as well, so try to remember using that shortcut of Control F as in find. So I'm going to go and just hit Control A to select all, Control C, this time I'm not going to cut it out, I'm just going to copy it, Control V to paste it, just so we have multiple instances of a couple of words. So I'm going to hit Control F to bring up the find in the navigation pane, and we're going to type in lorem. All right, now it shows us lorem shows up 4 times in our document. You can see here it's all highlighted. Now what we want to do is do a little bit of replacing. So I showed you how to replace it. If you hit replace, it tells you find what. We said we want to find lorem, and we're going to replace lorem with Harlem. So we're going to replace all, and it says all done. We made 4 replacements. We can close that, and when we scroll up through our document, we can see that we have Harlem here, right? Right. So what we're going to do now is just play with a little bit of the editing, playing with the find and replace. All right, so what I'm going to show you first is close this out. So remember, Control F brings up find. I'm going to hit escape to close that menu. You can hit Control H or go here where it says replace, but the shortcut is going to be Control, hold Control, press H. That brings up our find and replace. Now you want to use that just in case you feel like you have a lot in your document. You want to verify certain words or look for certain phrases or something like that. So use the find and replace helps for that. If you want to do another thing, which is called a go to, which you see here. So it can go to a certain page, a certain section, a certain line. You can close that, hit Control G as in go to, and that brings up that same thing. And you'll notice that all 3 of those functions are a part of the same menu. All right, so just be familiar with that. The ones that you'll use most likely are going to be find and replace. So I just want you to make sure that that sticks for you using the find and replace. All right, so what I'm going to show you is another way to play with the search function, the find function, but using wildcards. So you can see I have Harlem from what we play with there, and then I put in Harlum, and let's put in, I don't know, let's go Harlum. I don't know what that means. I'm just putting stuff there. So let's go Control H so we can bring up our find. And what you see here where it shows more or less, these give you more options as far as your search. So let's get rid of that for now. And you can match it based on the case, find the whole words. This, use wildcards. And again, the wildcards will help you find anything similar, whether it, you know, as long as it starts with some of the letters in the word, and then it'll find anything that, like, you know, that closely relates to that word. So we're going to say, let's find H-A-R-L. Any words with H-A-R-L. We'll put a question mark for whatever number or letter that could be there. And then it needs to finish off with, let's say, another letter or number, and it needs to have an M in it. So when we hit find, see how it highlights Harlum? And then we're going to say find next, nothing, right? So let's go find Harlum, because we have 2 question marks, right? Now let's see what happens if we remove a question mark. It goes to the next word that looks like it. So again, you might not use it frequently, but you can go into the more or less options here and put on wildcards to have it look for words that have these letters in it plus some other character. So again, it's just a little quick tidbit for you to know there. And then you can do one that has a string of characters also. So let's say, since we have those 3, they all start with H-A-R-L. So let's go H-A-R-L, and then we'll put the asterisk. So that means find anything that starts with H-A-R-L and whatever's behind it. So I'm going to hit find next. It finished searching the document, didn't find anything. What you can see what it's doing here is finding everything with H-A-R-L and then it shows there's the EM there. Let's go to find next. You see how it scrolls through each one of the Harlem things. Anything that has that HARL, that's what it's going to keep highlighting. And just to let me know, so maybe if I spell Harlem or I misspelled it later on in the document, you can go back through. When it finishes searching, then you get that. So it doesn't mean that it's not there. That just means that it's done searching. Excuse me. So again, anything that has HARL and then an asterisk behind it. So find me everything that looks similar to that. Just hit find next. And you can see it's going through everything that has Harlem, anything that has that HARL at the beginning of it. And again, that's using wildcards. There's quite a few wildcards. So if you ever feel like you're actually going to use that function, I would definitely suggest either going to the Microsoft Office website, or there's probably other YouTube videos floating around if you want to get specific with that. I personally haven't had to use it very much. I just use the regular find and replace. But again, you never know what the circumstances may call for. Just know that you can use wildcards. And in addition to that, you can go in and use like match the case. So if you want it to match exactly the way it's spelled, or if it sounds like there's different ways to find things, but I think the normal find and replace should be sufficient for you. All right, so let's get rid of all of this stuff here. I'm gonna hit Control A to select all, hit delete, get everything out of there. Let's start fresh. Holding Control and scrolling with the mouse wheel so I can zoom in and out. Remember that control button is it's a lifesaver. What we're going to do now is jump to the Insert tab. Now with the Insert tab, we're going to start off playing around with tables, but again, get familiar with the kitchen. All right, make sure you know where everything's at. Insert cover pages, blank pages, a page break if necessary, tables, which is where we're about to jump into, pictures, charts, screenshots, all of that stuff will be next. I'll show you how to use the snippet tool. And then you have different add-ins. You can join, search through Wikipedia. I'm gonna say, yeah, all teachers are probably gonna tell you not to use that. It's not a credible source because it is user-generated content and it can be edited by anyone. So you might not want to really use Wikipedia that much for research. It's probably a good place to start. It'll definitely lead you in the right place. A lot of the information does have sources and citations, but you don't want to cite Wikipedia in your works. Here you have online video. You can insert links, bookmarks, comments, and I'll show you why that's super important. Play with the header and footer, the page numbers. I'll show you how to set that up. Text boxes. The quick parts are pretty cool. Then you have word art, signature lines, date and time if necessary, objects. You can insert equations and symbols. So we'll cover all of that here while we go over the Insert tab in this video lesson. Now, the first thing here, I'm going to show you with the table. And the reason why you want to learn how to use tables is because it helps keep your information organized. And I said it before in a previous video, it's a great way to build your resume. That way, when the computers look through your resume, it sees all the information in tables, and it helps it sort through your credentials or education or what have you. So you want to start using tables, get familiar with that, be comfortable with it. So I'll show you the different ways to insert tables. So let's go here. We'll go to table. You can select the amount of columns you want, which is going to be horizontal, and the amount of rows you want, which are going to be vertical. So let's start with something easy. We're going to go 4 columns by 4 rows. And you can see up here where it says insert table, you'll see that change to let you know it's a 1 by 1, 2 by 2, whatever. So we're going to go 4 columns, 4 rows. Once you click, it'll insert the table for you. Another way you can do it, all I did was hit enter to grab some space, go back to insert, go to table, and you can click insert table. It's going to ask you how many columns, how many rows. So let's go 4 columns, 4 rows. The fixed column width and AutoFit the contents, those we'll cover in a section or in a second here. That's just to help organize the table and the cells to accommodate for whatever type of data you're going to put in there. All right, so we're going to hit OK, and it inserts the same exact type of table. What you want to pay attention to are these little contextual menus that pop up here. So watch, when I click off of one of these tables, like down here in the body of the document, that menu goes away. If you click one of the tables, you get the contextual menu back, the contextual tab, and you can see there's design and layout, which are specific to the tables. All right, and again, you click off of it, the little hidden menu goes away. So if you're stuck or anything like that, just click somewhere in your table and it'll bring up that information for you. Let's click off that, go back to insert, we have table. You also have the option to draw use an Excel spreadsheet, and that's exactly what it is. So I'll click that and wait for my slow computer to load that up. And you'll see here it inserts an Excel spreadsheet for you. And there's nothing weird or different about it. It is exactly that, an Excel table. So of course there are different ways that you can bring that in by importing that directly from Excel. I guess a more Excel related spreadsheet where you can manipulate that a little bit better, but just know you can insert that directly into your Word document. If you have an Excel document, you can actually just drag that into the Word document. So that's another way to do it, but just know that you have that. So we'll start with just the basic tables for right now. So clicking on the table, let's check out the Design tab. You can have a header row or not, it's up to you. You can have a total row. You can have the bandit rows, first column, last column, bandit columns, whatever you need. Now, if you're really into getting your table set up, you also have the table styles, which are already pre-formatted for you. And if you can see how that's changing around, you can pull down the menu here so you can see more, and that'll give you more of that Excel feel so you can kind of keep an eye on what you're doing. Just remember, you can play with these styles. You can use them to get started, and then if you don't want any of that formatting, you can always get rid of that stuff. So again, that's going to be in your Design tab. Shading is just like we saw with the font category on the Home tab. You can shade in specific cells if you like to highlight certain information. You can go here and change your border styles, and then you can change the thickness of your borders. Here is going to be the borders where you have bottom, top, left, all of that stuff. And if you can see on my screen there, you see how the border changes. That's the same exact border option that you get on the Home tab. Then you have your border painter. If you want to paint your borders or drag and draw them in if you want. Again, it's an extra tool, not necessarily useful because you have presets that you can play with, but just know that it's there. As far as the layout, this actually helps you lay out the table. So this, the eraser. So let's say if we go and click on this whole thing, I don't want the border painter. Let's go back to layout. We click on this crosshair here to select the entire table. You can hit eraser. See how you can view the grid lines or turn them on and off. You can check the properties of the table. These are the alignment, and then text wrapping. Text wrapping is just where if it starts to get too long, instead of it disappearing, not necessarily disappearing, but just being invisible, it will wrap the text into the cell, and the cell will like dynamically change its size based on the amount of text or information inside of that cell. So with this, let's say we want to do something like split cell, right? So if we go to split cell, because remember, I'm highlighted here. There's my cursor. I want to split that cell. You can click split cell, tell it how many columns you want to split it into, how many rows you want to split it into, and it's going to split just that cell. So if you can see here, it's split it into 4 rows and 4 columns. The other cells are perfectly fine. Same way with the table. If we have a big table and you want to split the table, now it just turned this one table, because there's nothing here in the middle. That's normal document, because you see that the contextual tab went away. But now we have a table here and a table here. Again, I wouldn't get too crazy with the tables, building them in Word, because I prefer to use Excel to build my tables and then just drag them over, because you can seriously just drag and drop your tables into a Word document, which is so great of the integration between the programs. But just understand that you do have a few different options there. So let's go, here we'll leave that there. And now that you can see all of those different formatting options, you can see when I click here, because that cell is highlighted, you can change if you need a header row or not, or if you want, the first column or bandit rows, whatever is going to help you, be able to visually see what you're doing. And then you can always clear all that stuff out. So let's get rid of this guy here. And then if you want to get rid of the table, just hit this little crosshair here that selects the whole table, and then hit backspace, and that'll get rid of the table. So click select all, and that takes care of that. Now for this table, let's see what we have here. So now you see the different design options. Don't get too carried away with that. It's a little bit more important to make sure that the layout and the information in your table, that's where your focus wants to be. So here you can draw your table again, where you showed you that, delete the table. This section here, the rows and columns. So based on where you have your cursor active in your document or in your table, that's where these come into play. So insert above or below, those are going to be rows. So I hit above, and then if I hit below, those are your rows. Left and right are going to be your columns. You see that? And you see how it formats the table to make the cells smaller? So remember, above and below are your rows. Left and right are going to be new columns. So let's say we want to make, I don't know, one big cell. Click and drag to highlight the cells that you want to turn into one single cell. And then go here to where it says merge cells, and it turns them all into one big cell. If you don't like that, you can highlight this big cell or whatever cell that you want. It doesn't matter. Highlight the cell and go to split cells. Now it's going to ask again, how many columns and rows do you want to split this cell into? So we're going to say 4 columns, 4 rows, if it will do that. I guess my maximum is 3 because I already have cells there. And it splits it into 4 and 3. So you can see there's an obvious difference between those cells and the ones that we created here. Now when you go to delete, you can delete individual cells, delete columns, rows, or the table itself. As long as you have the table highlighted, there's something selected in the table, that will work. So let's select the entire table. Let's go to delete and hit delete columns. And you see how it just deletes whatever it wants. So let's select that, and it deletes the column that's highlighted. This column has nothing on top that messes up our table. Delete column. And then we'll get rid of this one. Delete column. Now we don't need these 3, 4, those 4 bottom rows. So we're going to go to delete rows. So that's another way to modify your table. Then, see that? You have this up here to select everything that's in there. That usually selects the contents and the table borders. Then you have this little bar here, the little box, and you can drag the table out and look at what we got. A normal table again. Easy. If you go here, this is where you can adjust the height. Depending on which row your cursor's in, you can adjust the height or the width of individual cells. And then you have AutoFit to AutoFit Contents. So if there's information in there, it'll auto-fit that information. Let's see if our little trick will work here. So putting in our dummy text, you can see it auto-fit that information right into that cell for us. Now, if we want, we can go to AutoFit window. There we go. So now we have this set, and we went to AutoFit Contents. So that way this cell will automatically change to hold those contents. And then we have these cells also, and we can still put information in it. And you see the cells will automatically adjust based on the information that we put in there. Right? So let's say we decide we're not going to put stuff in that cell, not going to put stuff in that cell, and it automatically fits. So it's a good way to play around with the tables and keep your information organized. So let's delete that table. Select, delete table, all gone. Go back to insert, go to table, and now we're going to pick our table. This time we're going to do a 6 by 3. Now here's a good thing. We can put our information in here. Let's select all of these, and we're going to go to merge cells to turn them into one big cell. Put in our dummy text. Now we have all of this text here, and we want to modify. So we can go here to the alignment tools. These alignment tools are very similar to the ones on the home tab. You just get a few different options as far as aligning to the top of the cell, to the bottom of the cell, bottom center, bottom right, things like that. So again, just basic alignment, but you do have a couple of other options. So get familiar with that. If you're going to play with the tables and you're concerned about the way your information is oriented, play with the alignment options there. You have your text direction. Normally it's going to go horizontally, but you can switch it to go something like that. Why you would need that, I'm not sure. This would be good for charts, but again, you can use Excel, and then there's chart inserters or the insertion for charts in Word, where you can take care of all of that stuff in a different way. But just know you can play with the text there. You have your cell margins. So again, if you want to adjust the margins for whatever reason, normally you can just keep it on AutoFit and it'll automatically adjust the cell margins for you. And then another thing that you can do here, select, convert to text, hit OK, and that gets rid of the table altogether. It just turned everything inside the table into normal text. However, you can go back into Insert, go to Table, click Insert Table, and it automatically turns all of this stuff in the table values for you. So you'll have to move everything into other cells, or go to Layout, Merge Cells, turn it into one cell. So tables are really, really great, really organized. Get familiar with using tables, even if you've never used them before. Get familiar to using those tables. All right, so just inserted a 6x4 table. Now that you're familiar with the different things you can do with the tables here as far as splitting the cells or splitting the table, let's see what other options we have here. So let's do this again. Let's go, cool. Put some dummy text in there. And what we'll do, on the design, we'll go to our layout and let's highlight 1, 2, 3, 4. Go to delete those 4 columns. I guess we don't need that one either. So let's hit delete columns. And now we just have this one. AutoFit Contents. That brings it back into a readable format for us. And the next thing we can look at are these here, the borders. So remember, I told you, you can play with the borders here from the Home tab, or when you click on the actual table, you'll get that contextual tab, and you'll have the option to play with the borders here as well. Those going to be here in the design. You can play with the border styles if you want to change the colors or anything like that of the borders. But here, we can change, say we want to remove the bottom border, we can remove the top border, the left border, the right border. You can remove all the borders if you want. Again, you want to keep that in mind. You use the tables to build your information, and then you use the borders. You remove the borders so that they don't show up when you print. Same thing here. If you go back to the Home tab, you can manipulate those same exact borders. So let's highlight all of this table. Let's go into the layout. Let's go to Merge Cells and turn it all into one big table. Go into the borders. All right, so we got our dummy text in there, and what we want to do is play with the borders. So right now you can see everything with a little gray box around it means that it is active. If it's white, that means it is inactive. So we can hit no borders, and the good thing about that, even though we hit no borders and you can't see the borders when you print or on the screen, they're still there. So if I hit Control A, it's only going to select everything in the border. Control C to copy, and then Control V, and I keep pasting. These are all still inside of the table. And the way you'll know that is when you click inside of it, you'll see that little table crosshair show up, and you can see everything that's in the table. Now you can change your borders from here. See, top border, you get the line up top, left border, right border, all borders. Or when you hit this contextual tab and you go to layout, go to design, and you'll see the borders are still here. Same options. You could turn off the bottom border, turn off the top border, just go to no borders. So again, there are multiple ways to do the same thing. Like I said, you don't see the borders here because we have it turned off, but it is still inside of that table. And that's a great way to keep your information organized. If you're building a resume, which we'll have a video on that, a separate video, we're going to build a resume using some simple tables. So that way, when you submit resumes through these computer systems that they use nowadays, the computer will actually pass your resume on because it'll be able to read it. Everything will be sorted and organized, and that'll just increase your chances of your resume getting past some of the automated reader systems that they have. All right. So now you have the different ways to insert the table. So here I'm going to get rid of this here. Let's go to layout, go to delete table. So again, just a quick rundown. Table, pick your rows and columns, or go to insert. You can draw your table or hit insert table, tell it how many rows and columns you want. And whenever you're going to manipulate anything about the table design, just make sure it's highlighted or that your cursor is currently inside one of those cells. So let's get rid of these tables real quick. And let's do this. All right, so you can select all of this text, go to Insert, go to Table, Convert Text to Table. Tell it how many columns, how many rows. Since we don't have any real spacing, it thinks it's all one big chunk of information. You can separate it by paragraphs. We can separate it by commas, tabs, or other, which would be like periods or dashes or something like that. I don't think we have any commas, so we can't do comma separated. So we'll just keep it at paragraph to keep it simple. And what this will do is insert all of that information. And it looks at each one of these as separate paragraphs. They're different lines, they have periods, and it inserts that automatically into a table for you. Again, if you don't want all of that to be separated, highlight your table, go to your layout, tell it to merge the cells. Now it's one big cell for you to put all your information in. Another thing that you can do with your table, let's highlight this. Let's go to split cells real quick. We'll do 2 columns, 2 rows. If you hover your mouse over one of the lines, it'll give you different options to play with. So you see how that's a down arrow that's going to affect these 2 columns or this little section right here. When you have this little split cursor, that's so you can move different cells. You can shape them up to different sizes. Like this one here, it's going to be the same thing. We can move this up and down. There's no information in there, so you're not going to see anything manipulate. So let's take this from this one, Control C, Control V, Control V. And now you can see how we can manipulate that information. When I move up and it stops like that, it's not that you're having an error. It's that the cell is saying, hey, this is the minimum space that I can go because of the information there. Other than that, we can definitely make it larger, but we can't go any smaller than that based on the rules that we have for it to keep that text contained. You can go left and right if you need to move that. And you can see where this is going. Like I said, if you were making a resume, we would have like a small little row over here for like the dates of your employment. And then over here would be like your employer information, all that good stuff. Select the whole thing, delete table, on to the next topic. Okay, and before we finish up with the tables, I'm just going to show you a couple more things here, and then we'll move on to the last few items in the Insert tab. So here, let's do this. Let's build just a little small table. We'll do yeah, 3x2 should be fine. So I just want to make sure you understand with the navigation of the table, you can always click inside the cell that you want. That's one way to navigate. The other way to navigate is by using the arrow keys. So here you can see just moving left and right. Now, if I get to the last cell and I continue to, to hit right to go out of it, that is another way that you can get out of your table. And you can tell that here by the contextual tab being gone. So here, let's go back into it. Another thing you can do, you can hit the tab key, and that's going to push you around through the cells. Now, here's the thing. If you notice here, I'm in the last cell. If you hit enter, that's just going to expand your cell. It's like a carriage return. It follows that same concept. So remember, if you hit enter, it's not going to take you out or bring you into another cell or start a new row. It's just going to expand the current cell that it's in. If you want to add an additional row, say you filled in your information here and you wanted to go ahead and put more information, but instead of going in inserting more tables or more rows or anything like that, what you can do is hit the tab button, and that will automatically start you a new row. Now I'm hitting tab to move through the rows, but I'm in the last cell. If I hit tab again, it's going to bring me down to another row and insert that for me. So just remember, you do have a couple of ways you can navigate through, and by hitting enter, all that's going to do is expand that current cell. And just for review, let's go back here to our contextual tab. Let's go to layout. Remember, find your cursor. So our cursor is currently here. If you hit insert above, that inserts a new row above. If you hit below, that inserts a new row below. If you hit insert left, that's going to give you another column. Insert right, another column to the right. So just remember that. Insert above, insert below, those are going to be for the rows. Insert left or insert right is going to be for new columns. All right, so let's go ahead and click this crosshair here. We're going to go to delete, delete table, and we're going to do one more quick table example here. So we'll just a quick 3x2. Now with this, what you can do is hover over any of these lines here on the outside. So if you can see that here, and let's zoom in for a little bit. I'm going to hold control and scroll up with the mouse wheel. When you hit the right section on, and this only works on the outer perimeter of the table, but you'll see this light up. If you click that, that's going to add an additional column for you. So just remember, if you hover around the perimeter, you'll get this little quick pop-up. That's another way to add a column. And it works the same way on the outside here as well. And you can see here that'll light up, and we can add additional rows that way. So just remember, like I said before at the beginning of these courses, there's always more than one way to do the same thing. Just find what works for you, what sticks, what makes you work more efficiently when you're playing around with Microsoft Word. And if you remember when I told you about inserting the columns, this would be another way that you can put in those two columns like the magazine style. So let's grab this real quick here. Control C to copy, Control V to paste. And what you can see here now, I actually have 3 columns of text. So if that format works out for you for something that you're doing, totally acceptable. And again, this is another way to keep that information bound. So if this particular column is going to, stick to a subject, everything you type in here is going to stay within that boundary. And then on this side, you can go ahead and do the same thing and have those 2 totally separate columns. They'll never run into one another. And then, of course, you can still play with all the formatting options and all that good stuff as far as, the fonts and all that good stuff. All right, so that should do it for tables. Let's go ahead and delete that. All right, so since we're on the Insert tab, let's go over a couple of things that you can play with here in Insert, just in case you didn't know. Again, if you're writing a long page or, some kind of formal letter or something like that, and you want to have a cover page, go to Cover Page, select your, look, we have templates. Maybe I want this blue one. So now that is my cover page. Here, let's zoom out a little bit. That's my cover page, and then I have all my regular blank document here. And it already has placeholders. Type in your document title. If this format works for you, if that style is okay with you, then you're good to go. But there's ways to have all of this stuff set up for you. So you have cover page, you want to insert that. Let's say how many pages we have here. So we have a total of 2 pages. Maybe I need one more page. So just make sure you click on your last page, go to Insert Blank Page. Now we have a 3rd page, and you can see that down here, 3 out of 3, 34 words of our dummy text. I need another page, insert another blank page. So now we have 4 pages. So let's say if we need to use a page break, if you're not familiar with that. So let's do this, Control A. So we're gonna hit Control A, delete everything. So now we have just 1 page, and let's do this. So now we have some dummy text, 1 page, 86 words. Control C to copy, Control V, Control V. I'm just gonna hit Control V a bunch of times. All right, so let's zoom in. So now you can see we have 3 pages, 688 words. So what you can do with the page break, what that's going to do is put an insertion point to stop text or documents or images or whatever you put on that page from going any further. So let's say we don't need this one lonely sentence up here, right? Let's say that's just messing up the flow of the paper, but we don't want to have to, have that separated or hit enter until it goes down to the next thing, right? So Control Z and bring it back. What you can do, highlight it or put your cursor where you want to put the page break, hit page break, and now nothing can be written down in that little section. So here, if I sit here and just keep holding 1 as if I'm typing stuff in, see how it jumps down? So that whole little section, even though you still probably have realistically like 2 lines there you can play with, it jumps down and starts everything on the next page. Oh, what happened to everything else? Nothing. Hold delete and it'll bring all that stuff up. So that's why you would use page break, just to keep the flow of your page going. If you have those little, like I said, those little lonely sentences, that's a good reason to use page break. if it's all or if the information can all be fit on one page. There's no point having 2 pages and an entire sheet of paper with 1 to 2 sentences unless it is absolutely necessary to do so. And speaking of which, here I'm gonna hit Control V a couple times there. So let's say let's say all of this, we have those 2 extra lines and we really don't need that, and we don't have any more space, and we can't do any line spacing things. What you can do, what I have here, shrink to fit. And if you need to know how to put in shrink to fit, go to this little drop down caret, the quick access toolbar, and then click the customize. So you see the different options that you have there. You can go to more commands, and it's going to show you all the popular commands, the ones you're most likely looking for, or that people usually look for. You can go to all commands. And then once you have that, you can scroll down to find what you're looking for. And what I'm looking for is the shrink to page, which I already have on mine, but I'm just showing you where it is. So if you need to look for that, shrink font, blah, 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 shrink one page. So I have that, which you can see here, but you just highlight it and hit add. You already have this item on the quick access toolbar. Yes, I know. Thank you. So what you can do with that, you click that and it'll drag it up as much as it can. It does reduce your font size, so just be wary of that. That even though it does shrink it down to 1 page for you, it can reduce your font size. And then you also have that page break is still there in a way. You can shrink everything down, but just again make sure that your font isn't too small and that the page size isn't in the way. Now if you can see what I'm doing here, when I double click down here and I can type, if you double click, you kill the page break. So if you feel like you want to use that space, just double click where you put that page break and then it's open game again. All right, Control A to select all, and I'm going to delete that. So again, that's playing with the quick access. That's a useful thing to have up there, to shrink to fit, just so you don't have like those little runoff sentences and little extra sentences running across multiple pages when you don't necessarily need to. All right, so the next thing in the insert tab, pictures. Straightforward, very simple. Click pictures, it brings up pictures. That's what I look like. I look just like this. That's me. So you hit insert pictures and you'll get this little contextual menu again. And that's going to be options specific to inserting pictures. So if you want to put any kind of styles or something on your pictures, again, there's a lot that you can do in Microsoft Word that can save you some time. I mean, if you do have the time, you definitely want to go to Photoshop or, GIMP or like a real editor or something like that to play with this kind of stuff. But if you don't have a lot of time, Word can definitely get the job done. Here you can remove background. It's kind of a little advanced feature if you feel like you need to remove the background. Anything that's purple is going to be removed. Anything that is not, it will stay. So I'm not going to go too far into that, but if I go keep changes, then you can see how it removed the majority of the background. You would have to get in there and play with it in order to get the appropriate look, but just know it is an option. You have corrections, different color corrections. Again, as long as you don't click on it, it's not going to commit. You can just highlight it and it'll give you a preview of what those corrections are going to be. You have colors. If you want to change the colors of your images for whatever reason, that's Ruby Rod, so I need a Ruby color. Then you have the artistic effects. If you want to do something like that little, what is that, like a tile effect or something. I use Photoshop, so I'm not gonna get all crazy with this, but just know that you do have them there. Again, if you're gonna make like some birthday flyers or something cool like that, just cool and creative, there's a few different options you can play with right out of Microsoft Word. With this one, if you want to compress the picture, blah blah blah, apply, make sure you read that, delete cropped areas of the picture. If you want to commit to all of that, then it'll take care of that for you. Let that process. This one will change picture. You can select from a different file. So if I go select different picture and I pick a file, I pick that one, voila. And then this one, the reset picture, what that does is get rid of all the effects or formatting you did to the picture. All right, and then like I said, remember the picture styles. If you want to have any kind of little cool borders or anything, hit the drop down and you can see all of these other little things, little 3D style. There's a lot of different things you can play with as far as the options for inserting pictures. You have your picture borders if you want to put a colored border on there. You have the picture effects. Again, a lot of these are in the styles. These are just different pieces of the styles. Then you can add in your own pieces so you can see my artistic abilities here. And you'll notice that the contextual tab is gone because I don't have the picture selected. But when I click on the picture, that little contextual tab will come back for you. You have your picture layout. So if you want to put it in like some kind of graph style, you see that? So now I can put a caption underneath there if I want. You can put captions on there in multiple ways, but again, that's just that's playing with the smart tools, the smart objects, which we're not really going to do just yet. But if I click on the picture, go back into the formatting, here you have different ways you can wrap the text and the way it shows that star. So let's do that. I'll put another picture of me on there. So wrap text, it can either be in line, square, tight, go through the picture, top and bottom, or behind. So let's do something like hello world. So if we have our text and that picture selected, go to format, and you see how the text moves around. So if you insert any kind of pictures and you have text and you can't figure out why it's not working out right, you can move the text around to accommodate that. I know some people do have that issue when they're trying to put in a citation or, you know, like a little caption of where they got the picture from, especially if you're going to use a picture or diagram in a document. You want to be able to put, you know, page whatever, research, blah, 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 like have that information like in text citation. So here we'll go back. All right, and then you also have the alignment tools. If you want to align a picture, a lot of times they're going to sit right in the center by default, so you'll be good with that. You can crop the picture if necessary. Voila. Let's crop it out here. Crop it out here. And then if you decide, oh man, that's not right, all you got to do is click on the picture. It's like a smart crop. You click on the picture, hit crop again, and then you can bring all of this stuff back. And voila. So click on the picture again so we can go into the formatting menu. You can change the height, the width. You also have these little handles here, the drag handles. Just click and drag, and that way you can play with the scale, the height and width if you need to. And then the little curved arrow here, that handle is for your rotation. So there's a lot of things that you can do with that. And then this thing right here, group objects. If we have more than one picture, which I'm gonna have to show you this anyway, so let's do a second picture. All you would need to do is select both pictures. So you can hit Control A since that's all we have on here. Go to format, and then you can go group objects. That way they're pretty much together. You would only do that if you had like multiple objects that you wanted to keep together.